Warning. This site is derived from my personal memoirs, and not everything said may represent the opinions of my denomination. The carriages can be seen as a bit extreme for most Seventh-day Adventists of my denomination. It is important to note that from an apparent standpoint of someone seen as a schizophrenic, I can expect members not to support or stand aloof. If you think you will have a problem, don't watch. By the way, this particular video is not for children, and you can argue that the majority aren't. I would want to make special note of that. The thoughts will be discussed first, and then the poem recited. Enjoy!
It's like, I don't care about nothing, man. Roll another blunt. Yeah. Oh, good. La da 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 da. La da da. La da da da. La da da da. La da da da. Yeah. I was gonna clean my room until I got high. I was gonna get up and find the broom, but then I got high. My room is still messed up, and I know why. Why, man? Yeah, cause I got high. Because I got high. Because I got high. La da 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 da. I was gonna go to class before I got high. Come on, y'all. Check it out. I could've cheated and I could've passed, but I got high. La da. I'm taking it next semester, and I know why. Why, man? Yeah, cause I got high. Because I got high. Because I got high.
Go to the next one. Go to the next one. Go to the next one.
I was gonna go to work, but then I got high. Ooh, I just got a new promotion, but I got high. La da da. Now I'm selling dope, and I know why. Why, man? Hey, cause I got high. Because I got high. Because I got high. La da 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 da. I was gonna go to court before I got high. Ooh, I was gonna pay my child support, but then I got high. No, you wasn't. La da. They took my whole paycheck, and I know why. Why, man? Hey, cause I got high. Because I got high. Because I got high. La da 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 da. I wasn't gonna run from the cops, but I was high. I'm serious, man. I was gonna pull right over and stop, but I was high. La da da. Now I'm a paraplegic, and I know why. Why, man? Yeah, cause I got high. Because I got high. Because I got high. La da 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 da. I was gonna pay my car note until I got high. Say what? Say what? I wasn't gonna gamble on the boat, but then I got high. La da. Now the tow truck's pulling away, and I know why. Why, man? Yeah, hey, cause I got high. Because I got high. Because I got high. La da 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 da. I was gonna make love to you, but then I got high.
Help me sing. I'm serious.
I was gonna eat your pussy too, but then I got high. Now I'm jacking off, and I know why.
Turn this shit off.
Yeah, because I got high.
Keep going.
Because I got high.
Hey, do that over,
because
man.
I got high.
Come on, man. Don't,
Come
come on.
go. I messed up my entire life because I got high. Go. I lost my kids and wife because I got high. Say what? Say what? Say what? Say what? Now I'm sleeping on the sidewalk, and I know why. Why, man? Yeah, hey, cause I got high. Because I got high. Because I got high. La da 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 da. I'ma stop singing this song because I'm high. Present tense, baby. I'm singing this whole thing wrong because I'm high. Bring it back. Bring it back. And if I don't sell one copy, I'll know why. Why, man? Yeah, hey, cause I'm high. Cause I'm high. Cause I'm high. Are you really high though, man? La da 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 la da da da. He really is high, man. Shoop shoop shooby doo wah. Get jiggy with it. Skippity bee bop. Doo wah.
Oh, bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back. Bring it back.
Say what? Say what? Oh, cause I'm high. is Afro Man, and I'm from East Palmdale. East Palmdale. And all the tumbleweed I be smoking is bomb as hell. Yeah.
Excellent delivery.
I don't believe in Hitler, that's what I said.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, so all of you skins, please give me more head.
Afro motherfucker M-A-N.
M-A-N. A-E-I-O-U. A-E-I-O-U. And sometimes W. We ain't gonna sell none of these motherfucking albums, cuz. Let's go back to Marshall Durbin and hang some more chickens, cuz.
Hey, I got your money anyway. And you sell that shit yourself next time. Because I'm going to rehab. I'm through with this shit. I was just bullshitting. And you know this, man.
Sacrificing the future, high in spirit and low in morals. It is now Thursday, August 14, 2025, and I am beginning to write this. I just came from the rehab center where they administered their needle for what they call my mental disease. Like I said before, I would have gone to my father's memorial, but I changed my mind under the possibility of being drugged up and giving a speech before people. That and I did not really mean everything I wrote in that poem, especially behind a pulpit. The doctors could argue that such side effects are not that bad or not massive or noticeable. It's the principle. I have little to no say on whether or not I get these forced treatments. You could tell that they are yet to watch the things I posted. The doctor said you're improving, at least you're talking. I replied that was not medicine, but my choice. Sometimes I think that they are the ones who are out of their minds. To that particular person, I offered the link to the site to get acquainted with how I really think, and she turned it down point blank. Not interested. And yet they call it counseling. I don't know what medication they use this time, so I can't say for sure what is what. But one thing I do know is that sometimes I do feel a bit off. This is especially true when I go to the nut house placed there by my father, who now passed. Now the family has taken it upon themselves to continue with it. All good things and releases come in God's timing, and I acknowledge that. By listening to these videos, you can see that I disagree with what is going on. In the mind of many, they could say that Michael had a bright future before him, and all of a sudden, he lost his mind and went to the nut house. I had to laugh a bit as I wrote that because no one knows like I know. I'm going to talk about just briefly the high days in the Sandilands nut house, my vows to God concerning Laverne, and moving forward, especially since I have seen her last week as discussed in previous episodes. But before I get into that, I must say I remember my days in working at the help desk at the College of the Bahamas with my boss Carla, who I would talk to at times. I did not tell her all of my innermost thoughts, but she knew who I was interested in as I would tell her. As said before, Laverne was Rodman's niece, and I became interested in her when I decided not to pursue after Dernika. Those were the days of the chase. I was not a good hunter, though. People would try to set me up and offer me a prize, but I disdained that. Maybe I was not hungry enough. I was contemplating marriage during certain phases, and it was at times on the mind, or at least being in a relationship. I was not one to pick and choose just anything. If I did, it's because I saw something special. The only two people I ever chased after seriously for was Dornika and Laverne. All my life I was more content to be single. It never bothered me that I was a bachelor and never had sex. I could be wrong, but it must have been at the age of 22 when I was considering Dornika my first real hunt. I am now 41 and will be 42 next year, January on the 18th. My assailment of Dornika from the time I saw her to the time I stopped talking to her perhaps only lasted a year or two the most. When I first spotted her, I thought it to be love at first sight. I ran to Rodman and asked him who she was as I pointed her out to him. He said that is Dornika, Ms. Ritchie's daughter. Here is where my school lessons in women and relationships really began. Not that I never had the thought, but this is where I made an actual attempt. Rodman gave some advice telling me she worked on the internet committee with a man called Gilbert. I joined that committee seeing that I had a computer degree, and I found myself competent to handle the position. The ministry was new, but I got the hang of it pretty fast. Dernika and I had something in common, and that was church work. I was a person who was naturally timid, but I found Dernika easier to talk to. Talking to her came more naturally. It was my jealousies concerning a possible rival, whom I thought she was more interested and caused it to fall apart. In other videos I said what it was more specifically, but I promised not to bring that up too much. Only for the suspicion alone, I broke it off. I never let her have a voice or tried to explain. I went to someone else. Though all this would have been hard to admit, it is the truth. In the school of love, I have come to find that jealousy is a demon. For some, it's a merciful saint because they leave as they should. But as it is now, I find that it is better to lay aside relationships because of the serious time that we are living in. This, I believe, is just the silence before the storm when nations will soon war again like never before. That's just one fear. In any event, it did not work out. I missed out some things because I promised not to bring them up again. But I would say that spiritually speaking, women are like weed even though I never smoked. The right one can put you on a high. The wrong one can cause you to trip out. Solomon would have never thought that he could leave God's side, who visited him more than once, giving him promises and an encouraging word. A woman can do more to a brave heart than an army to a David. Satan can't stand up against a saint hot for God, but he can cause his fall because he is hot in the pants. Not only that, but he is emotionally weak and less of a man as it pertains to obedience to God due to compromises for the sake of her and the little ones he holds dear with her. The silken cord is stronger than the magically forged iron chain. I said it did not work, and I went to Laverne. Am I saying that she was the wrong one? No, not at all. But let me talk concerning her. I found Laverne attractive and very smart. The problem was not jealousy. It was that I was becoming more spiritual, and I was trying to balance and apply all that Ellen White I learned practically. I already pass off as a hypocrite, as the intro video is nothing Christian. It is advised from the start that it is not for children and to bring across a point to the doctors and the adults. This is the first thing that is stressed in the best way possible. You can still call me hypocrite if you want and say I did not have to go so deep, but it is what it is. In relating to the mature audience, maybe lessons sink deeper. But like I was saying, I really liked Laverne. You can say I only had 2 joints, or weed relating itself to women, though others had many, and even then, I never smoked one. I guess you could equate the danger to the secondhand smoke. I was still in the process of becoming the person who I am, and such changes interfered with developments on both ends. The Sabbaths was more important to me as I was contemplating what you could or could not do on that day. That, and there was much that I was learning. Who was teaching me Ellen White? Nobody. I was simply researching our faith and found we had a prophet, and I was curious. I downloaded the resources and listened to the audios. Laverne was an excellent joint I wanted to try. But laced with prayer and Ellen White, it gave bad results. The more I prayed and read, the more it did not work. Until one day, she just left. You should have been there. Seeing me pray and begging God to bring my joint back. Searching for it like the lost coin. Actually, crying and never even tried it. I would not say that I argued with God, but I demanded it back or my refund. The Bible says that the sheep that goes missing is loved all the more. When Laverne left, it broke my heart. All I could do at that point is continue to pray for her to return. I made a wager with God. If God could get me to concede to defeat and give up, I won't bother with a marital relationship with her. I would accept my loss. I asked to try him and him myself. I challenged him boldly, looking for terms we can agree upon. This was a fight between me and God that nobody knew about. It was not too many days after, but just a few, that I started to hear the voices as expressed in other videos. To cut a long story short, I ended up in the nut house group. But men can debate if I really was crazy to begin with. The way I see it, smoke first, then find out. This is where the water becomes murky as an Adventism. It can be debated on a spiritual plane if such voices are really in your head or are from Satan. I say that Satan was trying to talk, just like as with that Whoopi Goldberg character from the movie Ghost. Sam Wheat really is annoying. He fixed things up pretty good so that I could spend time with him and his friends in the nut house at times. all done underhandedly that a sensible person would never know or discern. It says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Ephesians 6 verse 12. At first, being disorientated, I did not know what they wanted or why they would move on individuals to send me there, but it later became apparent they wanted me to give up certain aspects of my faith bit by bit. Whatever that may be, that makes me a Seventh-day Adventist what he is. Such would be the health message: prayer, temperance, faith, and leaning on God, as opposed to some man in a suite who should dictate to you what is normal. I suppose that it is normal that if an individual refuses medication, they would resort to injections. But regardless of my sickly, malnourished appearance, they did that closing their eyes to the fact that I was in no state for such a thing. If someone looks like a stick, maybe he just needs food and proper nursing for a time. This is elementary. But when minds are controlled by Satan, don't be surprised at the lengths they will go to. I honestly believe that in the future all the people of God will go through something similar, as the whole world would tell them to give up their faith, setting themselves up as divine authority over their brethren. There is no talking to them. In their heads, they have already made up in their minds to rebel against God and His Sabbath. In the eyes of almost literally everyone, you would be looked at as the one with a problem, while they try different methods for you to give up from abuse to taking away every earthly support. It is something similar to this that Ellen White says that the saints will have to go through. Satan can have many agents anywhere, but the nut house is especially his home. From inhumane doctors to the very patients you interact with. Only in the day of the Lord can God expose it all. You would be surprised at what is hidden. They wonder that I have not chosen to speak. It's because at times they can be abusive in ways I will keep silent. Perhaps they don't wish that said, but they do things to you if you really upset them. You would think that an injection is an injection. I did not fight them, but because I would disagree, it was made unneedfully painful. Who can tell if a doctor out of spite literally stabs a patient with a needle because she is fed up? This was done more than once and constant. They like to stick you up when to them you seem to disagree in any way. I was never out of order in the least. There were sometimes I know that it could be administered in one go, but they would give me another needle right after a previous one for no reason. One time a doctor, I would not say stick, but stabbed me so hard that it left me sick for almost 2 weeks. The needle was extra large, and what she injected with was something very painful, and the force she injected me with was no ordinary force. That was a stabbing. When they last admitted me to the clinic and the hospital, you would think that it is normal to see a tube up someone's penis because he lost bodily function. They did that to me in a very painful way because I was not cooperating. The excuse was that they needed urine. They could have simply given me a cup of water to help or just wait. It was abuse because they know me and learn not to like me. All of these things are done in the open, but you cannot tell that it is abuse cloaked under pretensions of what they call normal. They are an inhuman pack of scoundrels. When I was not cooperating at one point, I was not even violent. And on top of that, I was already tied down to a bed by them. They were harassing me, and a female ambulance personnel member would punch me in the face saying the words "relax." Sandilands is an inhuman place. I have a right to say that that is one of the places where Satan himself frequents. I got admitted there through unfair dealings to begin with, as I was not in my right mind due to literal starvation, because I was suffering from perhaps the bad water I drank in the wilderness, became immobile, and could barely move due to that. I personally think that my father had connections and he used it. Strike while the iron was hot in the attempt to overthrow the faith. I am not sorry to miss his funeral nor memorial, which is today. In the future, men would go to the extreme to overthrow your faith. Ellen White says that as long as Satan exists, persecution will exist. She indicates that it would at times be underhanded, saying that persecution is a principle. You do not need wood and flame for the stake pile. If me going to the nut house was all there was to it, I would be actually still happy, but they are like the petty children who hold a satanic vendetta to patients who cross them. They are not loving at all, even though that seemed to be a part of their logo I seen on something. The nature is not just rude but satanic. I posted something like this similar on another video about abuses. I gave the link to members of the family, and even to the doctors, and they did not watch. Family, like the doctors, are just satisfied to see me drugged up, but I think that some would like to finish where my father who died left off in aiding Satan to have me give up my faith. I call no names because they will cry hearsay. I think they are determined for that agenda, which is why no sides want to listen to my testimonies. I don't retract. I spoke about the health message. As a conservative Adventist, I don't eat meat, dairy, etc. It's called being a vegan. What I am about to say happened so frequently, it could not be a mistake. They know what a definition of a vegan or a vegetarian is. When they would send the food with that label upon it, it would often contain flesh meats. A piece of bread or some white grits is not hard work, but I believe they knew what they were doing for the most part. This was not just once, but almost for every time I was admitted there. Of course, I did not eat such, but no one is that repetitively stupid day by day, unless on purpose. I would usually stay there for a couple of months except for the last time, but it was a purposeful working. Certain attendants would have to go out of their way so that I could have a morsel to eat. I am at least thankful for that and acknowledge it. I had plenty high times in the Sandilands nut house. Drugged up and not knowing top from bottom, especially when I first came there looking like a skeleton. I went from high hopes and marriage contemplations to abuse and insanity, not of my own but others. In any event, God won the match and I don't want to mess with him. He's too serious. Heaven laced my favorite joint and took me on a trip. But the angels were always right behind me, even though I was going through a horrible ordeal. Last Sabbath, I found it again as it rolled from under the bed. I thought that it was gone forever. Strange I did not hear a voice speaking this to me, but it was almost as if God was speaking to me saying this joint is mine. The spoil of war. Michael, don't smoke my joint. Meaning, don't pursue for marital ends. Be a friend, but not in a relationship. I understood. I have serious Latinos for friends, but they do what they do for my benefit. They never really leave you, though it may seem that way. Don't ask them for a smoke. But then again, if you ask, they will answer, but not always to your expectations, but for what is best for you. As it pertains to Sabbath school this coming Saturday, August 16, 2025, I just may continue with Sydney's class, Laverne's uncle, even though she may or may not be present. As it pertains to Dornica, I don't know what to say. She is not here, and in any event, the Latinos may do the same thing, which is why I don't ask. I did talk about that competition, but it is more so for demonstration than for keeps. I did say before, I am willing to be in a form of special education being graded by the Adventist brethren how I handle these women. This is not to teach me how to smoke, but proper education on cigarettes. Marriage is not my goal, but to answer some questions I had concerning them as mentioned before. Who would have been better suited? I already suggested some conditions, but by this video the brethren may just decline, seeing that it shows I am too blunt in my carriages and even worldly. I'll understand if such disqualifies my scholarship. But then again, as I am writing this not too long, I had my injection, so it can be argued I'm high even though I don't know for sure what they gave me. In any event, the poem.
Poem. High in spirit and low in morals. You see, this is a controversy. Sex themes and the three angels' mercy. Smoking the joint. To bring across the point. Or am I being real? To meet the ordeal. Who can be saved when the message is too tamed? All we do is spiritually lame. And we follow the usual scheme. You're not qualified, some might say. Come back another day. But anyone can use a sword. Applied just right, you can win the war. Can a virgin talk about sex and dope? I only want to bring across the right points is what I hope. Did Jesus have to had sex and drink alcohol? And demonstrate things by a great fall? Such was Solomon and Samson. David too, but ransomed. Profanity already used. Wash the mouth with soap. But this viewing is not for children, but for the adult and mature is again the hope. We are Adventists, so now or later we too will cover the Pope. Adventists generally don't drink liquor. And we carry the health message sticker. But at times we too can be ignorant. Concerning true health message, we hold indignant. Like the Bible, it is line upon line and precept upon precept. I pray we live by what is revealed, and not by what we feel. I am not knocking, don't get me wrong. Even though I seem to come on so strong, some at times can't tell my mood, and I often seem rude, and sometimes I don't bother. Even though I should explain to prevent a totter, it seems I am too left or too right. I'll try my best to say all I see is right. This memoir is an example where the colorful brothers may say I need to ease up. The carriage is too strong and something need to free up. But then again, it's a memoir. Even though to some it's sticky like tar. As mentioned about before, if this is their EP Roberts entrance exam for their special education, I intend to be real and give truthful intimations. They can correct me and I can actually post their videos, letters, and responses. We can be back and forth with opinion allowances. They can call me too strong as Laverne called me too Romont. Even though heavy truth I flaunt. Since we just had Youth Month, let me start where we left off. Forgive me if this is not soft. Where did we really fail the youth? We were not real enough with them and never intermingled Ellen White in our pursuits. We divorced the spirit of prophecy. And at the same time we became dry and not lofty. But I never visited AY, or should I say Adventist youth, to see any proof. Regardless, the church as a whole need to pray for the message of the pulpit. That the message would be less tamed and fill with the workings of the Spirit. And that more will listen to it. The world at large teaches our children about sex, drugs, and alcohol. And only their principles we recall. A part of their principle is to drink a little, which they call responsible. But before God, to hold to it is more disagreeable. They say to have sex outside of marriage use protection. But God still counts this defection. And you lose your heavenly election. The struggling know not the temperance Adventist principles that can help them. To give up the flesh foods. Without proper reasoning and a foreign prophet can seem rude. Take note of the following quote.
Quotes from Counsels on Diet and Foods. By Ellen White. Chapter 23, Flesh Meats, Proteins Continued. Israel's Failure and Spiritual Loss. 641. The diet appointed man in the beginning did not include animal food. Not till after the flood, when every green thing on the earth had been destroyed, did man receive permission to eat flesh. In choosing man's food in Eden, the Lord showed what was the best diet. In the choice made for Israel, he taught the same lesson. He brought the Israelites out of Egypt and undertook their training, that they might be a people for his own possession. Through them he desired to bless and teach the world. He provided them with the food best adapted for this purpose, not flesh, but manna, the bread of heaven. It was only because of their discontent and their murmurings for the fleshpots of Egypt that animal food was granted them, and this only for a short time. Its use brought disease and death to thousands. Yet the restriction to a non-flesh diet was never heartily accepted. It continued to be the cause of discontent and murmuring, open or secret, and it was not made permanent. Upon their settlement in Canaan, the Israelites were permitted the use of animal food, but under careful restrictions, which tended to lessen the evil results. The use of swine's flesh was prohibited, as also of other animals and of birds and fish whose flesh was pronounced unclean. Of the meats permitted, the eating of the fat and the blood was strictly forbidden. Only such animals could be used for food as were in good condition. No creature that was torn, that had died of itself or from which the blood had not been carefully drained, could be used as food. By departing from the plan divinely appointed for their diet, the Israelites suffered great loss. They desired a flesh diet, and they reaped its results. They did not reach God's ideal of character or fulfill his purpose. The Lord gave them their request, but sent leanness into their soul. They valued the earthly above the spiritual, and the sacred preeminence which was his purpose for them they did not attain. The Ministry of Healing, 311, 312, 1905. Non-flesh diet to modify the disposition. 642. The Lord plainly told his people that every blessing would come to them if they would keep his commandments, and be a peculiar people. He warned them through Moses in the wilderness, specifying that health would be the reward of obedience. The state of the mind has largely to do with the health of the body, and especially with the health of the digestive organs. As a general thing, the Lord did not provide his people with flesh meat in the desert, because he knew that the use of this diet would create disease and insubordination. In order to modify the disposition, and bring the higher powers of the mind into active exercise, he removed from them the flesh of dead animals. He gave them angels' food, manna from heaven. Manuscript 38, 1898. Rebellion and its punishment. 643. God continued to feed the Hebrew host with the bread rain from heaven, but they were not satisfied. Their depraved appetites craved meat, which God in his wisdom had withheld, in a great measure, from them. Satan, the author of disease and misery, will approach God's people where he can have the greatest success. He has controlled the appetite in a great measure from the time of his successful experiment with Eve, in leading her to eat the forbidden fruit. He came with his temptations first to the mixed multitude, the believing Egyptians, and stirred them up to seditious murmurings. They would not be content with the healthful food which God had provided for them. Their depraved appetites craved a greater variety, especially flesh meats. This murmuring soon infected nearly the whole body of the people. At first, God did not gratify their lustful appetites, but caused his judgments to come upon them, and consumed the most guilty by lightning from heaven. Yet this, instead of humbling them, only seemed to increase their murmurings. When Moses heard the people weeping in the door of their tents, and complaining throughout their families, he was displeased. He presented before the Lord the difficulties of his situation, and the unsubmissive spirit of the Israelites, and the position in which God had placed him to the people, that of a nursing father, who should make the sufferings of the people his own. End quote.
You know, even an Adventist youth can be caught up with drugs. Satan then throws blows and lugs. Many may claim that masturbation is not much of a sin. The prophet says that God calls it appalling, never touch such gin. The world does not consider that to touch your body you touch Christ. Continue in this habit and you will lose all spiritual might. Adventism has a close of probation message or doctrine, which entails putting away sin, so that Jesus' wedding feast you'll be in. As a part of things, no one should commit such self-abuse, or typical living loose, and still make it to be Jesus' Ruth. The standards are much higher, but you need to aspire. To an extent, we lost our identity. We think we are all right when God becomes the enemy. Some will bash the real talk, and live in a hypocritical luck. Being pharisaical, pretending to be spiritual. Ellen White is a vital part of the solution, but you must prayerfully read for the resolutions. Almost all of her work is on audio. That God provided that you don't stay as zero. I don't know about you, but Ellen White was my hero. Revelation 14 verse 8, and there followed another angel, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Some may say it's evil to be against papal nomination. People forget that history repeats. In their fallen state, none can meet such an entity. When assailing Satan and can't reform, take a seat. The end will not be neat. When disasters pick up, and for your faith they lock you up. Too late you see your screw up. You are not a screw up for going to jail, but you will give up your faith when they begin to assail. The time you have now you should study and pray. Take full advantage of the delay. The papal issue is a very sensitive one. But when God convicts, don't be surprised that your brethren then evict. But the voice and challenge is come out from among them, my people. Step fast, because there is no more sequel. Join those keeping all the commands, with solutions and plans. But this holds true with wherever you go. Study to show yourself approved and mind the seeds you sow. We love the Catholics and Baptists just like anyone else, but the big difference is the 10 Commandments. We think you should follow all and not hide one in the sand. Saturday is the true Sabbath that God demands. But Sundays is that of the papal origin began by man's paganism, and is not a part of God's provision. This is what many did not know or overlooked. God requires you to join those keeping every command and have the faith of Jesus. Perhaps you say a softer message will please us. But bear in mind, pray to discern the one that frees us. Solutions and help concerning health, temptations, and advice. Don't turn away and do as you might. Prayerfully consider Seventh-day Adventism. To consider how to escape the sinful prison. We are not against Catholic individuals, but any system that places a man in Christ's stead. Only to Jesus you can be wed. Jesus is the only father and priest. No one can play that role, not in the least. Praying and confessing to a man is not a divine appointment. It is the blind leading the blind and spiritual disappointments. Pray to Jesus instead. Do this and you are more led. I will end with the following quote. Amen.
Quotes from The Great Controversy by Ellen White. Chapter 35, Liberty of Conscience Threatened. The Constitution of the United States guarantees liberty of conscience. Nothing is dearer or more fundamental. Pope Pius IX, in his encyclical letter of August 15, 1854, said, "The absurd and erroneous doctrines or ravings in defense of liberty of conscience are a most pestilential error, a pest, of all others, most to be dreaded in a state." The same Pope, in his encyclical letter of December 8, 1864, anathematized those who assert the liberty of conscience and of religious worship, also all such as maintain that the Church may not employ force. The pacific tone of Rome in the United States does not imply a change of heart. She is tolerant where she is helpless. Says Bishop O'Connor, religious liberty is merely endured until the opposite can be carried into effect without peril to the Catholic world. The Archbishop of St. Louis once said, "Heresy and unbelief are crimes, and in Christian countries, as in Italy and Spain, for instance, where all the people are Catholics, and where the Catholic religion is an essential part of the law of the land, they are punished as other crimes." Every cardinal, archbishop, and bishop in the Catholic Church takes an oath of allegiance to the Pope, in which occur the following words: "Heretics, schismatics, and rebels to our said Lord, the Pope, or his aforesaid successors, I will to my utmost persecute and oppose." Josiah Strong, Our Country, ch. 5, pars. 2-4, see Appendix for corrected references. It is true that there are real Christians in the Roman Catholic Communion. Thousands in that church are serving God according to the best light they have. They are not allowed access to His Word, and therefore they do not discern the truth. Published in 1888 and 1911. See Appendix. They have never seen the contrast between a living heart service and a round of mere forms and ceremonies. God looks with pitying tenderness upon these souls, educated as they are in a faith that is delusive and unsatisfying. He will cause rays of light to penetrate the dense darkness that surrounds them. He will reveal to them the truth as it is in Jesus, and many will yet take their position with His people. But Romanism as a system is no more in harmony with the gospel of Christ now than at any former period in her history. The Protestant churches are in great darkness, or they would discern the signs of the times. The Roman Church is far-reaching in her plans and modes of operation. She is employing every device to extend her influence and increase her power in preparation for a fierce and determined conflict to regain control of the world, to re-establish persecution, and to undo all that Protestantism has done. End quote. End poem.